Welcome back to the Eric Krown Crypto channel. Wishing you a happy and healthy start to this nice Friday overcast morning over here from Helsinki, Finland. Apologies for the lack of communication. I mistakenly scheduled a doctor's appointment for what I thought was a different time, but apparently it was around the live stream time for today. So obviously no live stream. We'll be back on Monday at the usual time, usual place as always. And what else? What else do we want to get into? Yeah, a few big things for today. Actually, it is Friday and it is the last Friday of the month. So big expiration coming up in just a little bit under about 27 minutes here for major options. And then, of course, we have the new month coming in a little bit. Actually, let me see what it is next week. Anyways, we should start to prepare for that. Actually, no, it's like not for another week. Okay, fair enough. All right. Anyways, I want to get into the chart of the day. We're going to reference the data over here very specifically on the Krown chain application. Some very important things have actually happened in the last 24 to 36 hours that I want to follow up on, and is going to play a major point in today's analysis. But first and foremost, let's get back to this chart over here. The U.S. dollar. Why do I keep on saying the U.S. dollar tether? Just fucking tether dominance chart right here, represented by the blue or the cyan line chart in the background. I want to bring this up yet again and explain first why it's valuable, and we'll get into what the current look is on this one, is the move that we're looking for in the past 24 hours. It's happened both on this chart and also on Bitcoin as well, with that move up just above $44,000, and what it kind of means for the next day or so to come. Anyways, first and foremost, this chart is relevant because, or at least it's seemingly relevant because it does play essentially inverse from Bitcoin's chart, as you can see right here, when we put on the orange line chart in the background representing Bitcoin. And while I'm calling this out right now, or while I'm showing this right now, you can see that they do essentially play, inverse to each other on the macro trend schedule. That very, 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 very important part right there. And as we have it right now, obviously Tether dominance playing out a downside move, with Bitcoin playing out a bit of an upside move. So let's go into the shorter term timeframes right here, and we're going to go back onto a regular hollow candlestick no, dildo chart. And what do we have going on with our usual tools? Well, we got that move down to the 4% region, actually, just right around there, of which I am looking for a bounce probably to open up next week, and then very likely continuation to the downside. I still stick with my overall target on this one, very likely coming down at some point, probably in the next month and a half, or 2 months, whatever it ends up being, somewhere around about the 0.5 at least, at about 360 or so percent. So that very likely does coincide with some Bitcoin upside price action. And in the very short term, like I said, probably a short term bounce off this region. So very, very short term, probably are looking at a small pullback in the midst relatively soon. Should also call out this as well, as we have another 2 days left in the trading week to go for the weekly to confirm. And as it stands right now, there is potential bearish divergence that will be confirmed upon this week's closure, as long as we close basically anywhere below about 430 or so. So with that in mind, I do look at this as a, as a good indication that we do see this one topple on a little bit more over a longer period of time, and at least try for about the 3.60% region right here, and perhaps even as low as about 3.3% region, of which keep in mind that if it were to come down to these regions and reverse from there, it would still be an overall uptrend, which would obviously be, pretty damn bearish for Bitcoin long term, of course, but that remains to be seen. And obviously we want to see that price action happen first and foremost. So just kind of, making sure that I prepare for these sorts of very likely scenarios to come up in the not so distant future. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's go into Bitcoin's price action right here. I want to get to what I'm going to refer to as the chart of the day. And it's this: we do have something that we referred to over the past couple of days now about to happen, perhaps as soon as today's daily total closure, of which that is going to be the highly esteemed silver cross between the yellow 21 and the green 55 right there. We can actually even forecast what price action would need to close at for today's daily closure in order for that cross to officially happen, and then I'll show you what the past results have been essentially, and that would be 43,678. By the way, you can get this moving average crossover levels for free on the TradingView library. Credit to Mr. Caretaker himself for that. He's the fucking man. Anyways, works both to the upside and the downside. The most recent one that we've seen to the downside was coming after this consolidation. A very key point with these ones: if you don't see a consolidation alongside the cross, probably not going to be as good or as long standing. This one obviously pretty fucking good from that price point right around here in the upper 50s, leading us all the way down, or not us, but Bitcoin all the way down to the low 30s, of course. Anyways, before that, we did see a bit of a failure here to the downside, to be fair. But this was a bear trap after all. And once we got the upside cross yet again, that was your move from about upper 40s to Bitcoin's current all-time high, obviously. And then, of course, the one before that, again, another pretty good example right here on the retest down. And Bitcoin goes from about 37 to 53, pretty much unabated. Of course, the one before that was absolutely fucking epic, getting that move down from about 50 all the way down to low 30s. And we can go over a few more. Again, when things are consolidating sideways, that's typically when the biggest and most important signals are built up, which is actually what we're doing right now. And then it's once you actually see price start to diverge from that cross and you get that cross, significantly in there, that's when, you get a move like this, which was that move from about 11,000 all the way up to 20,000 or so. Again, this one right here, more of a consolidation. The key within this consolidation, however, that was pointed towards its resolution likely being to the upside was the higher lows as all the moving averages kind of contracted into each other. And then, of course, you have the Rona pump over here after 7,200, basically leading up all the way from there to 11,000 actually, and the one before that to the downside, the one before that to the upside, and so on and so forth. You got the idea. Anyways, in this case, I do consider this a really, 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 really good example right here, simply because price actually been consolidating, more or less sideways over the past couple months. So ultimately, as long as Bitcoin is certainly above that cross, and assuming that it does fulfill this criteria right here today, I do look at that as a pretty damn good situation or scenario for the next month or so to come. Again, this as always need to be mediated with price action itself. We're gonna get to that in a second. It's basically the same thing that we've been looking at for a long time now, but I'm just starting to put the puzzle piece together in the sense that we want to see one before the other, and this would be essentially the verifying factor. And of course, what is it going to be? It is going to be the same area that we've been looking at for, like I said, the past couple months here, or actually going back to January, in fact, with a daily closure at minimum above $44,500. If you want to play it by the book or a little bit more safe, $45,000 would be the number that I'm looking for. Perhaps even relevant on a 4-hour closure as well. If you want to be even a little bit more careful than that, I guess you'd probably be looking for 45,800 or so. Anyways, until then, Bitcoin did hit our target from yesterday. And you've probably been noticing if you've been tuning into this content, especially in the past few weeks here, the past like month and a half, I've been speaking a little more direct about kind of what I'm looking for, targets and whatnot, which I typically like to kind of stay away from because, well, in the past things have been getting a little more excited, which brings in a different kind of person to this sort of a channel, which is great. I'm all for more people joining in, but it does, some things kind of get lost in translation, I suppose. So my sort of understanding right now is that the people who are tuning into this content, like you obviously happen to give a fuck, and you're probably, a little bit more self-motivated to understand the subtle nuances, but the very important nuances of what trading, like real trading and technical analysis looks like. So I've been speaking a little more directly to you because I think that, you're just more like ready to handle those complexities. Not that anyone's not, capable of doing it themselves, but, just obviously if you're staying during these times, there's something else going on. So yeah, in this case, we did hit yesterday's target, obviously, and I'm not saying that to sound like conceited or anything like that. It's just so that we can follow up on these things over time. And, I am looking for a short-term pullback somewhere within this region right here. Again, between about 44.5 to 45,000 even. I do think that Bitcoin is starting to find a little bit of supply in this region right here. And pullbacks, short term can very easily come back down somewhere around about 43 would be no problem at all whatsoever. Even down to $42,000 is okay as well. The key indication that something new is going on, and it's not just a pullback, but it's a reversal with targets back down towards, minimum $39,000. And personally speaking, I'd probably be looking for an overall move to 37 or so in this blue box right here, 37 to 37.5 or so. That would still be with a 4-hour closure below about 41,000 bucks in this case. Until that happens, I do look at any pullbacks as another, higher low in the making, and very likely on the try to the upside probably next week or so. But the moves are kind of happening as we suggested was a little bit more likely. We're getting this initial move at the end of this week. So, okay, so good. But remember, the big thing that I'm really keeping a keen eye on is, of course, this chart right here. We've gone to it a million goddamn times. And perhaps we'll reference it in this video as well. In fact, we will reference it in this video, but before that, I do want to reference the short-term time frame stochastic momentum oscillator so that we can kind of, govern it up with price points right here as to kind of what to expect. And with that in mind, we're going to start it off with, let's actually start it off with, the daily in this case. Daily stochastic momentum will head to the downside with any sort of a daily closure below 43,130. 12-hour will, I think, is also around the same area at 43,700. 200 and also, in a pretty precarious place right here with volatility very, very low. This is kind of a corrective setup is what is kind of what I'm saying. This is kind of what it's looking like. 6 hour will also turn down below $44,000 upon next closure, and 4 hour will also turn down below 43.7. So that number's come up many times on a variety of different time frames. 3 hour turns down below 44.1. An hourly turns up above 44.250, but pretty much nosediving right there, to be fair. All right, cool. Let me turn that off because alerts are fucking annoying, and let's go back into it right here. So what could we essentially say for the short-term timeframes? If you do start to see Bitcoin close below, let's say about 43,500 or so, I'd be looking for that pullback to come down, probably over the weekend, somewhere around about $42,000 or so. Again, not super problematic. The problems start to occur for the BULAs below about 41 or so on, at least a medium-term timeframe closure in this case. Until then, I still do give the probabilities in favor of the BULAs for the overall formation here. Remember this formation that Bitcoin is seemingly putting in, which I think is best represented by the 5-day chart, of course. The 5-day chart, I have marked off here all of these extreme lows that we've seen on 5-day BBWP, measuring volatility, of course. And in the past couple of years, and we could go back, much further than this as well, the results are actually rather consistent with it, but this is just the most visually obvious right here. We've seen a very, similar response once these levels are hit in like the mid-teens or so. Again, represented by the green vertical bar, so we can get rid of that for the time being. And I've already measured them out, as you've seen a million goddamn times. If you've been paying it to any attention to these videos in the past couple of months. Probably like the past month and a half now. And basically from those signals, keeping in mind that volatility is a direction neutral sort of indicator, well, we've seen about, on average, 45% moves to the upside or the downside from that expansion phase. And it typically takes about 40-ish days on average to reach that, that final pivotal price, essentially. And what I am really focusing on right now is that assuming that things kind of remain where they are right now or get even a little bit more crazy before not tonight's closure, but tomorrow night's closure, because that will be the next 5-day closure, we will see the first etchings of an expansion phase on 5-day BBWP in play here, which is the key moment really where these moves start to occur from. And not only is the 5-day BBWP getting a positive slope, it's also above the moving average as well if it does, if things kind of end up around here. So that's where these moves typically evolve from, and then, about on average, about 40 days for that move to occur. Of course, we can forecast what 45% to the upside versus the downside would look like from this current price point. To the upside, $56,000 about, and to the downside, about $23,000 as well would be relevant. So what would essentially give us a further bias on which direction this is likely going to be, completed towards. We already looked at the daily silver cross in play, but also the 5-day stochastic momentum, I think, has a major role here as well, in the sense that it's just been, really good at getting the direction for at least like the past couple years here with these iterations that we've seen. And again, we can go back and test it even more, which, yeah, these ones were to the upside as well. But basically, this first one, or if you remember kind of the order in which these happened, first was down, the next two were up, fourth one was down as well. And you can see the first one, what was 5 days stochastic momentum doing? It was headed to the downside, also losing the bullish control, or the bullish control zone at the same time. Okay, important. Same thing on the second one, but to the upside, so opposite. So upside cross and above the bearish control zone. And same thing again over here on the third iteration to the upside, freshly crossed the upside within the bullish control zone, beautiful. And then fourth one to the downside, obviously losing the bullish control zone and headed down at the same time. Well, that is your downside move. And guess what we're doing right now? Well, 5 days stochastic momentum is still very much headed to the upside here. And out of the bearish control zone for now. So we can also forecast the price action that would be needed in order to force this one back down. That'd be about 39,300. So I'd go as far as saying that as long as Bitcoin's above there, I do put the probability, or I don't really entertain the downside possibility of this. It's not saying that it can't happen, obviously, but I just don't think it's relevant in my personal view. Again, that's for you to decide yourself, obviously. I don't trade this fucking chart. Here's always the thing. It's like when people, I think, have a major misunderstanding between YouTube analysis and like actual trading. YouTube analysis is looking at stuff like this, which is interesting, which is cool. But I don't care about any of this for my, like, is this related to my fucking trading at all? Like, I'm on the 15-minute and the hourly, more recently. it's not relevant at all to me. I don't care. I wouldn't even know what direction the market's actually going in if I weren't doing these videos, probably more often than not. But it is, it is fun to kind of mull over and explore ideas for the purpose of this. Anyways, in this case right here, short-term timeframes like hourly, do we see anything that's obvious? A bit of bearish divergence forming, very, very low volatility. So we're probably looking for a short-term pullback relatively soon. Full hour is looking like, again, a pullback is not like super problematic, but I'm just looking at that as a corrective move based off the volatility reads right now, looking for another contraction phase. Other higher term timeframes are obviously trending, so I do look for this to, if I'm just shooting you straight, maybe a short-term pullback after maybe one more try, a little bit higher would be fine. Somewhere around 45 would be completely fine. But probably coming into next week, I'm looking for Bitcoin to, give another like legitimate try up. And I'd go as far as to say this, if you're looking for something else that, will be confirmed as soon as today, that I think is rather important, would be the weekly for CME. So CME weekly will close today at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, I do believe, and any sort of a closure basically above 44, even above, especially above 44,500 if I was being like as conservative as possible, but even as little as 44 even or so, I'd say that would very likely confirm this as a major low, in this case, not just a major low, but a higher low, a macro low. So you have low, higher low yet again. And also probably coming in next week, we will see another drive of hidden bullish divergence start to evolve from this low. If you start to close above like 44.5 or especially $45,000, it would also be considered rejection of the bearish control zone. And these do have natural targets, very short term, like probably in the next week and a half to come would be around $47,000, probably a pullback from there, very likely a pullback from there, as we're going to reference on the underlying market dynamics. And then you got a couple more extension targets towards like 51 and in 57 or so, which guess what? That's also in line with the technical target if you're looking at this as a ascending triangle, which we do have in right now with these higher lows and same highs. Again, buyers getting more aggressive, creating those higher lows. Confirmation, however, it is not had right now, but above 45,000 bucks on a daily will do it. And that has an implied target, guess where, to about 56,000 bucks, which is the 3.272 Fibonacci extension. Or if you want to take this one step further, we can actually take, it is the bearish retracement, by the way, but we can take a bearish retracement from the high to the low for current price action. That's actually where the 618 would kind of find its way around as well. So if I am looking for like a catastrophic pullback, the areas that I'm looking for are 51 and then 56 or so. This would be kind of like your traditional bull trappy region. So very likely a big pullback from there if Bitcoin were to get there at all. Probably, decent sized pullbacks from 51 and maybe even 47 as well. Anyways, I wanted to reference this data because it is really becoming very, very important right now. I even got my alert for global open interest going above 13 billion this morning. And what do we see? Well, we see that it is now at the highest level that it's been in basically since December. Since December's failed rally, I might add, to about 51,000 bucks. So we are seeing a bit of a divergence between open interest and price, to be fair, but this is now rapidly approaching what I start to consider some concerning regions where we typically do see some pullbacks from. Now, again, that needs to be combined with price action first. So I need to see, if I'm going to be looking for like a 20% pullback based off this signal, which, yes, every time that we have seen it get above 14 billion, it has produced at minimum a 20% pullback, at maximum like 50% for Bitcoin. I don't think it's relevant right now, especially as long as you're above like 41, let alone 39.3. But to reference this, let's say Bitcoin were to get up to, the next major region, like 47 or 51, obviously this probably goes higher alongside with it. So it's going to be a key component of the analyses to come to find those major pivot points where that, 20% move becomes rather likely. In this case, to the downside, very, very likely to the downside. So it just depends how high Bitcoin gets first before confirming that reversal. If it were to happen from our current price action, you'll be probably notified if Bitcoin comes down below about 41 would be a big red flag and like no questions asked below 39.3. If Bitcoin gets up to, 47 first or 51 first before that, becomes relevant, then obviously we can't see it in the future just yet. So have to take it one step at a time. But for right now, I do still put the probabilities in favor of the BULAs, just short term, maybe one more spike a little bit higher, probably grinds it out, and then a bit of a weekend pullback would actually be perfect and set it up for next week to very likely try again to the upside. And personally speaking, I do think that things would have some busting action, in fact, to the upside as well. So with that in mind, the two major things to be watching, at least in my opinion, is the silver cross and the daily that are relevant for today. And then most important probably is going to be weekly CME. Any sort of a closure above 44,000 bucks. For reference, right now it's trading 44,250. So it is contango actually. Once again, and I'd probably be looking for next week to very likely trade around $47,000, maybe even set it up for a move in the week after that towards 51 or so. But for right now, you can see the writing on the wall. You can see that things are really, really cooked up here. Even the weekly BBWP is like on the floor, basically lower than, or just as low as what we saw before the July 2020 breakout. So we are very likely looking at a big piece of price action coming up. Other than that, I'll save the more long-term stuff for the weekend. I didn't even realize that this video is longer than what I already considered. Should be known that funny rates are slightly negative on the day. On the hourly, they are positive though, so not a full look right there, to be fair. But yeah, that'll do it for right now. Take care and see you soon.